We are at 200 Degrees Coffee Shop today. I'm here with
Jez Collins from the Birmingham Music Archive.
I'm with Molly Harvey.
I'm Olivia Johnson.
And today we're going to be talking about Birmingham Music Archive and the In the Queue. Okay, so the first question is, what is your ultimate aim and what are you hoping to achieve with this archive that you've created?
The archive is attempting to document, preserve, celebrate and share Birmingham's music history, heritage and culture. I think ultimately what I'd like to see happen is that the city itself, whether that's the local government, the city council or some of the agencies and the people of Birmingham, realise and celebrate the enormous contribution that individuals have made to local, national and international music culture. I don't think we do that enough. I don't think we understand or recognise what people have achieved, and I think we should nurture that and celebrate that and use that as part of our cultural offer.
So you're trying to gain more attention about their heritage in Birmingham?
To gain more attention, to document it, to preserve it for future generations. As I say, just to, but inwardly and outwardly, to say that Birmingham is a city of music and a music city. And the best example of that is someone like Liverpool, who use their Beatles music culture. And that attracts inward investment, it attracts tourists, it attracts events and other things to the city. And if you ask people, I'm pretty sure, you ask people about Liverpool, one of the first things they would say, is where the Beatles were from. So I'm trying to do that for Birmingham.
So you think people would say, this is where Black Sabbath is from, for example?
Yeah. Black Sabbath or ELO or The Move or Joan Armour Trading or half of Led Zeppelin or whatever it might be. Yeah. So there are many, many bands from this city, exactly that. The Beatles are the Beatles, right? They're global, I get that, but a group like Black Sabbath have had a huge impact on, again, local, national, international music culture through their music, but also how they've inspired groups. So if you go to Indonesia or Brazil, metal is huge, and metal really had its origins in Birmingham. Sabbath, we mentioned, Judas Priest, another huge global band, Robert Plant and John Bonham, who were born on the outskirts of the city but had their first bands and would be in and around the music culture in the 60s with Led Zeppelin. So Birmingham has a real importance in metal, but also in terms of Bhangra music. So a music that's not often talked about, but Bhangra music is really sort of started here and in London. There's a little bit of dispute about where it started. I'll say Birmingham. I'm sure.
Was it about Punjabi music?
Punjabi folk music, and then how that developed into with amplified music, and that became Bhangra. And we exported at a certain point in time more music back to to Bollywood. From musicians like Malkit Singh and Bali Sagoo and the Bunjangi Group and Apna Sangeet. So all these groups from there, reggae, another one, bands like Steel Pulse and UB40, and all those sort of artists, particularly sort of the early Bhangra and the early Punjabi and the early sort of ska blue beat bands, would be working alongside people like Tony Iommi in the furnaces and the factories and the foundries of Birmingham, and they would make not metal music, but they'd make Punjabi music and folk. So it's trying to get that story across, really, saying that there isn't one sound of Birmingham, there are multiple sounds that came round at the same time and after each other and at different periods, but they've all contributed to what is an incredibly unique music city.
Could you explain what your job role is at Birmingham Music Archive?
So the Birmingham Music Archive is just me, right? So it's a creative and cultural organisation that does the things I've said, attempts to celebrate, share Birmingham's music history and culture. In reality, that is, I call myself a founder director, right? So what that means is everything from doing finances, booking meetings, thinking about projects, finding the funding for projects, running the projects, doing the evaluation, going to meetings around strategy or meetings around music or culture in the city, going to meet developers, thinking about how culture can be or music culture be embedded in developers, doing things like the Crown Pub, where I've now got that building listed by Historic England. I've just been sat with a guy who's talking about a museum of street art. So I can't say there's one thing. There are multiple things, but at its core, I suppose, is I run every facet of a business, and all the things that go with that. So lots and lots of different types of things.
Do you think there is any possibility of Birmingham expanding more and more as a music city?
Music is continuous, so music has happened in this city in different forms, different genres, different places, different spaces with different people for the last 200 years, right? Whether it's musical or folk music or minstrelsy, or whether it's popular music, jazz or rock or metal, wherever it might be. So it's always there, Yes, music will always be there. It will always expand, and new forms will come through. So I mentioned earlier Bhangra music, and reggae music that came with new migrants into the city after post-war. We now have a fairly sizable Polish, Romanian, Albanian communities in the city. So people are always coming into the city from other places, and they bring their culture with them. So they'll bring their music traditions with them, whether they become popular music or not, who knows? But that will always exist. I think what we are lacking in Birmingham is a music industry, right? So I think we lack an ecosystem to support an independent music sector. So I think we lack, as I said, an ecosystem or a music industry. So I think we lack things like a press or booking agents or managers. I think we have really great sound engineers and recording studios, but I think we lack perhaps more recording studios. I think we lack labels, and labels that have national and international reach. I always compare the music industry in Birmingham or the West Midlands with the film sector. So if you think about the film sector, you think about the BBC, you think about MasterChef that's coming into Digbeth, you think about Stephen Knight and his studio, you think about the Bond. There's been a lot of investment into the screen sector, and that's film, TV and gaming, right? Because they see it as a growth industry. Part of my work and other people's work particularly is to make that same argument for music and say, actually, to the combined authority or the city council or whoever, if you put X amount of money into the ecology and the infrastructure of music in Birmingham and the wider West Midlands region, there are opportunities for jobs, for skills, for apprenticeships, for growth, for inward investment, and for economic outputs. We as in the music industry, the bigger, wider thing, I don't think have quite made that argument that the film and TV and screen sector have, and I'm hoping that we start doing that. I see there's potential. The West Midlands Music Board hasn't done much at the moment for various reasons, but that's a really important vehicle to make that. We have to make that economic argument, right? We can't just say we know it will happen. We have to say, give us X amount of money, and over time that will become, the output of that will be X amount of jobs, X amount of investment. So it could be an EMI, that would be amazing. It could be one of the universities spinning out, doing some stuff. It could be individuals or the sector itself organising it. But at the moment we're missing that. So absolutely we can expand. The opportunities are there. But we're not quite at that stage for it to happen.
Are there any upcoming projects that you're particularly excited about?
We're working really hard on the Crown pub, which is where sort of Black Sabbath really formed. They were called Earth at the time, but it's where the first ever live folk album was recorded by a guy called Ian Campbell, who was from Birmingham, from Scotland, but lived in Birmingham. He's the father of Robin, Duncan and Ali for UB40. It's where John Taylor from Duran Duran had a residency with his band Dada. It's where the punks and skins of Birmingham congregated. It's where Thin Lizzy and Judas Priest had early gigs. It's where Robert Plant and John Bonham would hang out. Christian McVeigh from Fleetwood Mac would hang out. And it's just down the road in town. It's been closed for 14 years. I've got it listed by Historic England, so it's listed for its musical significance. So it's an internationally important venue, but it's left to rot. So we're trying to reopen that, or get the developer the owner to sell it and bring investors in. It's obvious, but it would be a brilliant bar, and the stage and the floor where Sabbath first played is still there, so it could be a tourist attraction. And that's part of a street called Station Street. So I'm involved in a whole host of things like that. So it's not something that's happening yet, but we're doing a lot of work on that. Waiting to hear from the Town Hall. I think you've just been Symphony Hall Town Hall, who are looking to do some work around their capital work around accessibility. But we will be working if they get the funding to do a huge public exhibition installation in the public areas and around the back to highlight some of the incredible music history of that venue, the bands and the musicians playing there, but also things like Charles Dickens did his first public reading of A Christmas Carol, so we're going to bring all that out, so it's a public exhibition that will stay there for the next 50 odd years and just make that connection between Birmingham and the town, and that would be a beautiful piece of work, similar to the one we've done at the University of Birmingham, like a timeline. I'm developing I want to do is a Women of Birmingham in Music project, launch it on International Women's Day in 2026, and that would be doing a series of podcasts and exhibitions around with women from Birmingham who've contributed to music locally and internationally. It's probably through podcasts, exhibitions, and then a live event with some of those musicians at the town hall. So in terms of heritage places, there is Mothers in Erdington, which is now gone, it's closed, but it's above it was voted the best rock venue in the world by an American magazine called Billboard, which is really prestigious in 1771. It's where anyone and everyone around that period played. It's only open for 3 years, but Led Zeppelin played there, Black Sabbath played there, Elton John played there, T-Rex played there, Free played there, Pink Floyd played there and recorded Uma Guma there. Anyone and everyone around that period played there. It's a really historic venue. The Crown that I've mentioned is a historic venue. Places like the Powerhouse, which has had a great history of music going back to the Locarno days, but it was great in the late 80s for jazz funk and jazz dancing all dayers, and then it became a rock club, a live music venue. I went to loads of gigs there, but it's where the first ever Acid House night was in Birmingham. The Forum, which used to be the Hummingbird, which has got an amazing history. That's been a venue for like 50 or 60 odd years. There are places you can go to, like Ozzy Osbourne's house in Lodge Road in Aston, or the schools he went to. So there's all these places that exist around music heritage that you can go and look at. Lots of them have gone, no longer exist, which is part of the issue. But we're looking at new technologies about how we bring that back to life for people if you want to do tours. So you can see some of those places. But there's places that are open, like the Digbeth Institute, that's an historic venue forum that I've mentioned. The Rainbow in Digbeth, that's historic, the Custard Factory. So there's loads of places that are contemporary. Hare and Hounds in Kings Heath, brilliant venue. So there are loads of places and spaces that still exist as music venues. Lots that are gone, and that's normal of every season.
Could you